Hey, this is Mike Shea, and welcome to Backstage Pass. I can't record these intros without my bulldog Paulo in the room. I bring him to work every day, and I love him to death. He's gonna be 4 in about a week, and but I can't, like, if wherever I go, he's with me. So if I try and lock him out of the room while I record these, he starts barking like crazy, and he brings his bone up to the door and drops it. And so then I actually have to, so I just gave up. And so he's in here with me right now. So if you hear chomping and stuff, that's what's going on. He's got his own Instagram account. It's nowhere near like the kind of volume that Colby the Frenchie has, but Telly Smith's French Bulldogs account, who I love. Both of them I love. But Paulo the Bulldog is actually his Instagram account. And so once you take a look at him, you go, okay, now I know what Mike's dealing with. So anyway, so our guest on this episode, I'm actually surprised it happened, to tell you the truth. It's Lynn Gunn, who is the singer for the band PVRIS, and I think anybody who's listening to this podcast knows who she is. She's kind of elusive as an interview, to tell you the truth. And sometimes she like comes out. She's an admitted introvert, but sometimes she kind of comes out and talks to people. Other times you can't get through. So the fact that we did this, I was pretty I was very happy that she did it, and I kind of want to avoid some of you that maybe think we're going to talk about LGBT issues because she came out over the past few years, or maybe we're going to talk about I don't know, being gloomy and all that. Well, we kind of talk about that, to tell you the truth. But my main point is that I want to talk about different things. And so this one, hopefully for fans and maybe for other people who don't really know that much about her, will be kind of maybe a different kind of primer for her. The band's been around since about 2012. They put out, did this post-hardcore thing originally, but then they put out these, right out of the box, they had that huge record that they did that was a big hit, and they got nominated for a bunch of APMAs, and I think ultimately ended up being probably the one that kind of put them on the map. And that album was White Noise. It came out at the end of 2014. And St. Patrick and You and I, which both came off that record, were two amazing singles. I love St. Patrick. And then they put out another record last year in the summer, All We Know of Heaven, All We Need of Hell. And then soon after that, they toured with Muse, which was very cool. And that's a big thing for them. And now they're already working on their third record. And Imagine should be out this year. She is a Pisces, if you did not know that. She's born March 15th, 1994. And, we kind of know a little thing about Pisces. And we do talk about that in this interview as well. So actually, I'm just going to shut up because it was actually a lot of fun. And I think that you'll be able to find out some things about her that you did not know. We began by discussing a particular fascination that we both have. One of the things that I did not know that we had in common, I knew a little bit, but I didn't know we had it, is that we're both what they call taphophiliacs. Taphophiliacs are people that like cemeteries.
I'm a taphophiliac?
That's what they call it, taphophilism.
There's a word for it?
I know. It sounds kind of...
it sounds dirty. Or it sounds like... It sounds... Maybe not dirty, but it sounds a little scary.
So, it's kind of weird. You talked about in the story about in AP about how you, when you were small and you're in the crib and your mom put up a skeleton thing in your bedroom and it kind of sunk into your psyche a little bit.
Oh, yeah. And, we'd go to this library, the public library, and they had, a skeleton book, and I would always... It was a National Geographic one, and I couldn't even read at the time, but I would just go and open that up and be like, ooh. And then there's little haunted house pop-up books on the top floor of the library in the children's section, and I couldn't reach them, and I always make my mom go get them. But I don't know, ever since I was really little, was obsessed with skeletons and cemeteries. And
was there a cemetery near where you lived when you were a kid?
Yeah, there's one.
Because you were in Lowell, right? Or where were you born, in Boston?
Born in Winchester, but
Winchester, okay.
Grew up in Lowell, so
okay.
Been in Lowell since.
And there's I was kind of looking around up there. There's actual Lowell Cemetery, and there's an Edison Cemetery or Edson Cemetery, and then there's a Hildreth Cemetery at Lowell. I don't know if any of those were near where you were.
I don't think I've been to those. There's one called Shed Park Cemetery that's
okay.
like a mile from my house.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, that's the one I kind of grew up going to, and whenever I'm home, I'll like run there in the morning. Or yeah.
Is it a really like one of like town founders are buried there and all that stuff, like that kind of old one?
A lot of really cool people are buried in there. Like one of Edgar Allan Poe's supposed affairs is buried there.
Oh, that's okay. It's not only Gothic, it's also TMZ. So.
Yeah, straight up. TMZ, Victorian TMZ.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine what it would have been like back then? My God.
Probably even crazier than.
Oh yeah, there'd be
TMZ,
all these American heroes would be just torn to pieces.
Yep.
I mean, just the slave part alone is, owner part is going to be take them out of equation. But beyond that, I can just, it's crazy. Yeah. So did you used to cut through the cemetery, like going back from school or something, or what about it was kind of like what attracts you to them?
I don't know. I never realized it at first.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just in general really drawn to like turn of the century design and architecture and
mm-hmm.
just like anything in that realm visually or just like atmospherically, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And that cemetery is from around that time period from like early 1800s until now. So there's a lot of stuff from that era in there.
Sure.
And it's like modeled after this one cemetery in Boston called, or not Boston, but Cambridge, called Mount Auburn Cemetery.
Okay.
Which is, if you're ever in the area, you need to go there.
Okay.
It's I don't know, it's just beautiful, and it's like it's very kind of hilly and windy, and you can kind of just really get lost in it, and it's really well kept.
Is it kind of like is it kind of like Greenwood in Brooklyn?
Kind of. I haven't been to
monstrous kind of.
Yeah, I haven't been to Greenwood yet. I've been dying to go.
Really?
Yeah, I've lived there for like a little under a year now, and have yet to go check it out. I just haven't been home long enough.
You're not home much, yeah, exactly.
But that's on my list. I've like definitely done some research online, and it's in that vibe of Greenwood.
And the amount of time that you spent, I mean, did you, with any of your time off in I know this sounds so gothic, but there's going to be so many fans out there cool in this, because, but did you go to any of the ones in London, like Highgate and all the rest of them? I haven't been to Highgate yet, and I really wanted to go. Is it because everything's grown over with moss?
It's crazy. It's crazy. So I guess I'm probably going to mess this information up, but it was left unkept for a long time, and I want to say it was in the 70s or the 80s. They
right. Cut the budget, right? Or
I think I might be completely wrong, but I'm just trying to remember from the tour what they'd said. I want to say it was in the 70s or the 80s. They like went back and started to try and restore it and get rid of a lot of the greenery, but it's still completely overgrown, and it looks like it's massive, and when you're in it feels massive, but it's really not that big. It's just very crowded and very
everything's like literally buried on top of each other practically, because there's the other one, the Pére Lachaise in Paris. Have you been to that one? That's where Oscar Wilde's buried in. Yeah, Jim Morrison, all that, and that's like that. Everybody's like literally buried. I mean, Jim Morrison and the picture is original. Like you look online, it's like, oh, he's got a plot.
Yeah.
And he doesn't. He's squeezed in within inches of somebody, like two other people that are nobody, as far as I know. So it's not like he's next to anybody else famous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's that vibe, but even crazier and more overgrown and tighter.
Wow.
And you have to do a guided tour when you go do it. But they take you into some really cool areas. Like they bring you into, they're not, I wouldn't say they're catacombs, because they're like above ground.
Okay.
I don't know what would make it classify as a catacomb, but
okay. Yeah, there is a word for that. I can't think of it, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Kind of like a mausoleum, but you could walk into it and you could literally see like the foot of the caskets, like some of the like the stone wall was gone from it, so you could literally, you're like inches from.
Have you been able to do the catacombs in Paris yet?
Yes.
Isn't that awesome?
It was awesome. It actually
claustrophobia.
Really, it really surprised me, because I thought I was going to feel really overwhelmed with either like the realization of like death upon everybody or something in that vibe. But it's so insane looking and just so massive and again claustrophobic. It almost just feels like you're on a movie set or something.
That's a great analogy.
And
yeah, it is.
And it's there's literally so many bones and so many skulls that it's almost dehumanizing, so you don't really feel it as much in a way.
Exactly.
And then there's sections where it's just like a bunch of femurs and then one skull, and you're like, that one skull will hit you kind of more than like seeing hundreds, which is, I don't know, you're literally just looking at your own mortality right in the face. But.
Oh, exactly, because the air is so still, you're so far down in the ground, and the way that it is almost laid out like an art project.
Yeah, well, I think I remember reading that or hearing that on the tour there. It was like set up to be kind of just not an entertainment thing, but just a.
It is kind of an homage or a celebration. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But a lot of the cemeteries, the big ones, like that one in Massachusetts you were just talking about, they were all based upon Highgate and that, and they're these grand cemeteries. Everybody would go sit in them during the
they're like
summers
a social
and
thing.
have picnics and stuff like that.
Yeah, they'd have popcorn or
right.
I don't know what they actually ate back then, but
well, it's kind of like in a very modern way what they do at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, right? And they show the movies out there.
I've never gone to do that. I've been wanting to
really?
So bad, but yeah, it's like the same vibe. Everybody would go for strolls there. You'd go on dates there.
Right.
Which makes sense. So maybe we had some weird past life thing where
I wonder.
That was our thing that we went to go to.
Isn't that weird? You talked about that with in another interview.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the Vice interview or something, but you kind of talked about past life stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Did you actually have somebody talk about your past life?
No, I've been wanting to go do like a regression therapy session or hypnosis. There's like a bunch of ways you can do it, but you can also kind of do it yourself if you just take notes and really write down what you're drawn to, what you don't like. I haven't heard that version.
Really?
Yeah.
What? How do you do it? How do you do it?
I don't know. I read a book on it when we did one of our first tours ever, and it just completely changed my mindset on everything and really like opened me up to a lot of different stuff I don't think I would have been open to if I didn't realize it or if I didn't read the book. But there's a section where it talks about like you can kind of come up with your own conclusions about it to some degree, and a lot of it
interpretation like
kind
that.
of or it has a lot to do with just like really analyzing your likes and dislikes and seeing where they stem from, because a lot of them don't stem from anything. Like when I was like 3 or 4 and I was going and picking up skeleton books or sleeping with a blow-up skeleton, my parents didn't raise me with that. There's nothing in my like upbringing where that would have influenced that or just like nurtured that in a way. So there's that. And then I don't know, but you kind of dissect little things in yourself like that, like, oh, what are you irrationally afraid of or irrationally drawn to? And you just kind of piece things together. And in my findings, I found like a lot of things tying back to like Victorian London, turn of the century, around that period.
I mean, it's like crazy, but it's also cool.
It's so cool. It's so fun. And even if it's complete bullshit, you can learn a lot, do a lot of research. And
I think some of it's also based upon whatever phobia you got. Because like
I'm
afraid. I love the water, but I'm afraid of drowning.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that there was something in my past that had to do with that.
Totally. I think that's completely
valid.
So
too?
Brian's terrified of bridges over water, and like nobody else in our crew are. You're like, sorry, Maddie's in the room with us. Maddie's really drawn to like World War II and 1920s mobs and stuff like that. And it's I don't know. They're things that are so specific and just subjective and different from person to person. So it's like I think there's something very telling about it.
I always kind of wondered if there is a method to it, if there is such a thing as like past life stuff. Like, you have to kind of be dead for 10 years, then that energy recycles, or is there like you know what I mean? Like, is there a time period to it?
Yeah,
like,
I could go super in depth with this, but
really?
I think people will think I'm fucking nuts.
No. I mean, it's actually because you are a very creative person, and you're very open-minded to things, and you've talked a lot about how you're kind of freeing yourself and I think this is interesting. I think this is fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've done like a lot of reading on like collective consciousness and collective energy, source energy, stuff like that, and we all belong to that. And so that's kind of we're all just recycled in some way.
So do you think when somebody dies, it's just the energy's going out into some place?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're all connected. I think we're all made of the same shit. And then when we get put down in our bodies, that's when it becomes separated a little bit and you have your own 3D experience.
So, well, I mean, you've talked a lot. You've talked about that, about like looking into a lot of. I think more so now, since you seem like you've worked through a lot of things where you felt like there were a lot of energy was holding you back.
Yeah.
You felt, and so the kind of the new energy, the fresh energy, so to speak, right, has been allowing you to kind of explore different things creatively and so forth. I mean, like. Just like even on your songwriting, if the things that you're doing now and the things you're doing for other people, have you found the tone has changed at all? Have you kind of, is it the point of view has also changed, or do you still feel like there's still part of that was been there from beginning day one to now it's still there?
Yeah, I think there's always this little twinge of sadness, and a lot of artists have it, and I definitely have it. No matter what the circumstances are around you, or like whatever mindset you're in, there's always a little like tiny little poke in your heart that like something's missing, something's missing, or I don't know. I think it's just the longing, and I think it might just be some kind of innate thing that a lot of creatives are born with, and that's like you're meant to have that. You're meant to hold on to that till the day you die. I don't know, but no, I definitely think my perspective and like outlook on things are a little bit more positive, or maybe not even positive, but just like more open to understanding and a lot more flexible, I guess. Okay. And just like willing to kind of dissect things much more, and just I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just much more broad. I guess much broader, but.
I think you talked about maybe not verbatim, but kind of like about trust.
Yeah.
And like learning to not only trust yourself,
everything,
but trust everything around you too. And did that take a lot to work through that? Because it is really, you got to let go. I've dealt with that. Like you got to really let go.
Yeah.
To like,
that's when the best stuff happens, when you surrender. Yeah, I've had so many things, especially in the past 6 months, that the thing that I had to do was just let go and trust outside energies and trust the people around me, and just like let go of my control, and that's when everything kind of pulled together. So I do think it's
How do you think? Do you feel like your life has started to kind of like every day we get up and we want to take a step forward, right? And so when you start to let go like that, the trick, or the hope is you're going to be able to take 2 steps forward that day instead of just one, and in some cases take another one back, right? Because you hold yourself back. So do you kind of feel you're doing 2, 3 ahead now? Like you feel like your career and your life and everything's kind of moving a little bit faster than it was before at all?
To some degree, I don't know. I thought about this recently. I was just like kind of reflecting on the past, I want to say past 6 months or so. I don't know. I feel like humans are obviously, we're constantly evolving. Sorry, I'm like hyped up on coffee.
No,
you can't talk,
trust
right?
me. I purposely didn't get hyped up before this because I'll be like la 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 la.
Gotta do my articulation.
Yes.
No, I think people are constantly evolving to some degree at some I guess regular pace, but I think the most change doesn't happen gradually. It happens like in intervals, and it happens rapidly. And I think that's the most realistic way, is like you go through some shit and then you blast forward 10 levels, and then you cruise on that level for a little bit, and then something else happens, and it's usually when you're going through something, or like just there's some kind of negative block in the way, and once you conquer that block and you like understand it, that's when you level up again. So.
Sure. There's a lot of music fans out there that I'm sure kind of go through this, but and I think as adults we all go through this, but especially when you're trying to kind of change yourself and change how you operate with people, and especially as an artist, you're communicating with your customer, so to speak, your fans. Do you think it's hard? How hard do you think it is to learn how to forgive yourself?
It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard, but
do you think that there's a process to it? Like you're just talking about like these little, and then once you get it, Yeah,
I don't know. I have a really hard time with the past, and that's I think one thing I've really been like looking to, or I wouldn't say I have a hard time with the past, but I think especially as a musician, and especially when you're creating literally like time capsules of art, your
I love
past
that.
is kind
time
of
capsule of art.
yeah, that's what it is. Ultimately, it's a time capsule of your time capsule. That's a new word. A time capsule of like your experience as a human being, not only as an artist but as a listener too, because that's I don't know, music's one of the most nostalgic things you can do and like draw from. But I don't know, it's hard. It's almost harder because like other people don't let you forget.
Yeah.
Or like it's a lot of the time. We were just having this conversation about like somebody's hair the other day, like somebody cutting their hair, dyeing their hair, and it's like, I don't know. You're constantly growing, and like when people are so attached to one little segment of your life and maybe not the other, it's kind of trippy, and like it definitely can hold you back if you're too focused on that. But
have you usually, I mean, I'm sure as an artist and, you know, with your team and the band and everybody, like if you're going to go change your image, it's like you, no matter what you do, like, right? No matter what you do, you dye your hair this way, you do that, you put this, you do that, wear this clothes, you don't, you change your style. There's going to be backlash. And so, you know what I mean? It's just,
sometimes
really?
I think, I don't know. I think there's
Have
a
you been
difference.
spared the wrath of
I don't know. I think the biggest thing with anything, whether it's like changing your style of music or changing your style of clothing or hair, is just like, as long as you're not trying to rip something off or like completely
authenticity.
It's a matter of being genuine and being true to yourself. So if you switching it up completely and like flipping everything on its head and really shocking people, but that's like you, I think people see it. I don't know. 'Cause like, I don't know, you could start your career in a completely false like facade and appearance and style, and then be like, no, fuck that, and then go to your true thing. And sometimes people will be like, oh yeah, I don't know, you can see it happen both ways, both orders.
I think that one of the great things about you, and maybe you don't feel this way because of, you know, kind of how your evolution at it, is that how down to earth you are.
Thanks.
You sincerely mean that. Like you are very down to earth. I mean, obviously you've got an aesthetic, and it comes across through the visually and photographs and so forth, and videos, especially videos. But I think behind that, this is a very, in a way, and I mean this as a compliment, you're kind of garbo about it. You know what I mean? It's just like you're kind of you're introvert. You've admitted you're introvert. You know, slightly reclusive in a way. You know, but it's still this like. It's just, there's like an aura, and your fans kind of, they see you as an icon now and everything, but you're still down to earth. You're a very natural person.
Thanks. I try. Or I don't try. It's like, I don't try that at all. I don't know. I think it's, I've been really good at like compartmentalizing creative and like myself, I guess, like as much as I am a creative person and really passionate about art, I'm a human being. Like, I don't know. How do you
feel about sometimes being an icon to more and more fans? I mean, the more that I see, the more I talk to you, it's not in a sense of like you're being put up on a pedestal, but they see you as a role model.
Damn, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time seeing it or understanding it. Yeah.
I would think that would be, and in many ways, be normal not to be able to like be able to see that. I would think. Yeah. Because you're kind of dealing with your own stuff, right? And
exactly. Yeah. But I think.
Is it too much pressure? You think, like, to kind of, you know, do fans like come up to you and say, "Oh my God," like?
I don't know. I've definitely thought about it a lot recently and just really tried to wrap my head around it, and something I've like talked with my vocal coach a lot about. My vocal coach is like one of my best friends and like kind of like a life coach as well. And so she's always really, really helpful with like dissecting these kinds of things and being like, okay, well, look at it this way or look at it this way.
Sure.
But the ultimate thing with this, I guess, this type of question or situation is just like, you just got to be real. Just do you, and people will pick up on whatever they want to or whatever they don't want to. And as long as you're, again, being authentic and true to yourself first and foremost, I think that's the most inspiring thing to other people. So I'm just gonna keep doing you and keep doing me. So
life of musician question real quick. And I ask this a lot. What do you do when the band is trying to do a performance and the audience just isn't in the right mood?
You have to kind of like,
You've experienced this.
I've experienced this a lot and been through many trials.
It's not the
and
band,
errors.
obviously. It's just, you know what I mean? The mindset of the people just come in and they're in a different place that night because of whatever's going on, right?
For sure. I mean, I don't know. We've been like opening tours since day one, and our like we just finished up opening on like a really crazy tour over the summer.
Sure.
And I don't know. You just can't take it personal. You have to look at it as an opportunity to like just really hone in on somebody else's energy, or like, I don't know. It depends. Like there are some times when you're like, all right, this has nothing to do with us. Don't even bother like trying to work through it. Just have fun and like just jam out with your buds. But I don't know. I think I used to have a really hard time. I'd be like, this is awkward. I don't know what to do. And I would like kind of like.
I would be the same way. I mean, like, I would just stop the show and say, what's the problem?
I used to take it really personally, not going to lie. And I definitely would just be like, I don't know what to do. And would like outwardly project some kind of weird energy that probably seemed really angry, but it was really just me being uncomfortable. But I don't know. I think now it's more of just like you can create whatever environment you want on stage, and like whatever you're doing, you can suck people in. So if it's like, if somebody's not vibing, or like the crowd's in a much more intimate or just tame mood, you can do the same thing as a band. And I think you just match up with it. It's really, I don't know, it's kind of like feeding off the energy and trying to match it. Or sometimes you can go head on and be like, yo, hey.
Right. Depending on where you are. Boston, New York, you could be more direct.
Yeah,
right.
But it's, I don't know. It's ultimately, if just make sure you're comfortable on stage. And I think people, and it's the same thing as like just being a human being or being an artist, or quote unquote looked at as like a role model, or just do you. Do whatever feels like good to you in that moment. And I think people just pick up on that. So
who's been the last, or has there been? But I imagine, being an introvert, there has been, because I'm an introvert too. What was the last artist that maybe was an idol of yours that you just froze when you met them?
Ooh,
I mean, not froze, but you know what I mean. You just felt like a little intimidated, you know, or maybe you just didn't. You turned into a fan.
Definitely.
That's probably a better way to put it.
Probably Haley Williams. But I wouldn't say like froze up. It was more so like I really want to connect, but also like was aware that the circumstances were not the environment to like really connect and chat.
Those are the worst.
It's okay. There's a time and place.
Right.
But yeah, I think that she would be the craziest one for me so far. Or yeah.
Is there what about her? Do you kind of, I think it's respect, right?
Respect, I mean, respect's the biggest thing. I don't know, it's kind of what you mentioned earlier. She's just super down to earth. She's real. She's honest with herself.
She is actually.
And I think that's what makes somebody iconic or just respectable.
Trivia question for the fans. Especially, I guess, with your new energy, what would be the lyric that probably represents where you are right now?
Ooh. From Paris?
And I would imagine it'd probably be off the most recent record.
Yeah. I just burped in my mouth. I hope it didn't show up.
It's okay.
There's a frog.
You're down to earth.
Down to burp, baby. Probably. But I'll keep singing. From it's the last track on the record called NOLA 1.
That's so many, especially knowing, and I've seen the interviews you've done lately, there's so many things that could have, like, it connects right into.
Yeah.
You know?
Just keep swimming, keep singing.
You know, there's my mom was an astrologer.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. So, and she, for many years, it was one of the things she got into. And so, I don't know what time you were born, but
Ooh, is that my natal chart?
Yeah, it's your natal chart.
Amazing.
So, and I'm not going to
CoStar?
Huh?
Do you use CoStar?
There's a thing called Astro Lab
Ooh.
that I use, and they're very thorough with everything.
Yeah.
And so this is like the free one that I did. I didn't go into all the other stuff like that, but here's something, and I don't want to like get into your like personal stuff. Like,
no,
it says, like,
dive right in.
Crazy,
this is cool.
and no, I don't want to do that. But I like, especially now, it said Pluto in 28 degrees Scorpio, right? And so Pluto, for everybody, is that where your Pluto is. It's very generational. There's a whole generation applies to your Pluto. So if everybody's got that, it's probably like a 10, 15-year generation of people that have the same thing. And it says, for your entire generation, this is a period of intense research and discovery in areas that were heretofore, I give them credit as using that word, considered mysterious, remote, or taboo.
Yeah.
The root causes for many complex occurrences will be unearthed due to the intensity and thoroughness of the search. Man, does that apply.
Yeah. I think right now, especially with everything going on in the world, especially the past few years, there's a lot of digging up, and there's a lot of people just really digging into themselves and digging into other people and like really dissecting things. And I think it's all as things might be perceived as quite negative right now, I think it's definitely gonna turn over, because it's almost as if the world is in some form of intervention, and it's the first step is realizing.
So amazing.
The first step is realizing there's a problem, or the first step is just like admitting it, and then now it's diving in and being like, okay, how do we fix it? And I think our generation is the most open to realizing that and dissecting it and picking it apart and being like, oh shit, okay, let's own up to it and figure out where do we go next. I have a lot of hope, honestly.
I love that line. The world's having an intervention.
It is. It's just an intervention period. It's a really crazy, dark intervention period. But
sometimes you need to go through the darkness to see the light, right?
Exactly.
You know?
It all comes back to it. Just balance.
Yeah, so I just...
Yeah, that's really cool.
You know, you can have that, by the way.
Thank you.
So you probably know it by hand, by the back of your hand right at
I
this
know
point.
I got Moon in Taurus, Venus in Aries, Gemini rising.
What do you know about yourself? Like, was there anything you discovered about yourself when you started kind of doing astrology? Again, I don't want to be prying too much, but
no, it's cool. I love this stuff.
Like, I'm a Sag and I got a Gemini rising, and so I should be a lot of fun. But then I have a Capricorn moon, and it kills it all. So, just Capricorns are just too they just level out and get too serious about stuff, and it's just like God.
I like Capricorns.
You know,
I've never met a Capricorn that I didn't like.
Well, because you're Pisces. And that's why Capricorns and Pisces get along.
Compatibility. There's something to it. I guess, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I know like what my signs are, but astrology is I feel like very complex. So it's hard for me to like focus in on. I would eventually like to be able to really just pick it apart and analyze it, but
I was a mess. My grandmother was also a palm reader, so I was getting nailed both ways on it.
I do tarot cards.
Oh yes, I read about that. Yes. So do you bury them in the backyard and all that stuff, or put them in dirt, or
no?
Because there's a couple of different ways you can keep.
You can
them fresh.
Bury them in dirt. You can leave them out in the moon. I'll just like leave them by a window under a full moon, or like if you take them and then reorder them and just reorganize your decks, that can like cleanse it. But I think it's all just about believing in it and just
oh no, totally. Every single one of my
energy.
Friends that reads cards have it always hit me up before they read their own, because they have panic attacks.
It's scary
because they're afraid they're going to pull that one. You know, it's like life gambling, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like, am I going to get lucky tonight? Or
it is, and tarot is especially difficult because all the cards have so many different contexts.
Oh, sure.
Like, I don't know, one card in a love context will have the complete opposite for something regarding business. Or so I actually had a psychic reading done a couple weeks ago, and they were like, hey, you're we see that they were like communicating with quote unquote spirit, so like angels or your guides, and they were telling me, they're like, hey, we see you using tarot cards, we know that you're a person that overthinks absolutely everything. So they were like you should get angel cards instead, or just ones that are much more specific with the just meaning from card to card, so that it's easier for us to communicate with you. They're like, we know you overthink, and we see that you do that with tarot cards. So they're like, cut yourself a little slack, get like an angel deck or something like that. So
Are you gonna get one?
oh yeah, I'm waiting to have a day off and like find a fun little
No,
shop
that's
to
it.
get 'em.
That's so hard for musicians, touring musicians especially, to get that day off.
Yeah.
You know, to kind of get like, I mean, you get a day off, but you don't really get a day off.
Yeah, you do, but you don't.
Exactly.
It depends.
Well, how do you find your peace then when it is a day off? Like, how do you, what do you, and especially, because I want to talk about writing in a second, but how do you find that peace when you're in a day off? Like, do you run away from everybody that you're touring with? Or?
I have serious FOMO, which is, for people who don't know, fear of missing out. So I like try and find a balance of like getting a little bit of alone time, but then also being like, what's everybody doing? We have some kind of plan. I feel like we've had some kind of
Isn't that what they say? Introverts are people that really want to be extroverts, right?
Yeah. Or I don't know. I feel like,
come on, let's get a party. I'm gonna stay in tonight.
I love being alone. I love alone time, but I also really love everybody in our crew. Like our whole touring family is so fun to hang out with. At like the end of every day, we're like, how was your day? What did you do today? Like, I don't know. We're all best friends. So it's, when we have days off, we're like, all right, what are we doing? So I don't know. I try and find a nice balance of like doing something for myself and having a little bit of like, recharge time, but then usually we'll like plan like a group dinner or like we'll all go see a movie together or something like that. So it's a nice balance.
You know, we, you talked about it in the story with us, and you've talked about it elsewhere too. Because like on this record, you went down to New Orleans and you hung out in two different places. One of them was that Creole house, in 1855, and you spooked in it. You were just like, you didn't feel good about it.
I was so scared in it.
It's so I gotta say this now that you bring that up. Going back to cemeteries again. Do you ever walk in a cemetery and you feel bad energy?
Oh yeah.
Really? All right. So I'm not the crazy one.
No,
right, cool.
You're not crazy.
You're feeling it too.
There's some that I'm like, But then, I don't know, there's places so like the one near my house or Highgate, when you can feel it's not necessarily even a bad energy. It's just very, very heavy.
Heavy.
But it's kind of nice at times.
Oh yeah, you can tell when there's parts that are at peace, right? And then there's other times, there's a cemetery here, of course it's a Catholic one, and there's a very old spot in it, and it's got a lot of the ornate, you know, and the ones that are like 30 feet in the air with pillars and an angel on the top.
Yep.
So there's a bunch of those over there, and for whatever reason, in that section only, I go over there and my stomach starts just cramping up, and I just feel a lot of hate, and I literally have to walk out of that section before I start feeling better. And I've tried to sit there. Is it just me? Am I thinking it? But every time I walk into that section, I just feel it, and I'm like, there's somebody here that's not
just
happy.
in that one area.
Just in that one area, like somebody they're not happy.
Interesting.
It's weird.
No, I believe that totally. We were just in feeling energy in places in general. I'm definitely like very good at picking up on, like, especially with locations. I think
it's the artist side of you. I think artists are just open to that energy.
I think artists are all generally very intuitive, whether they are aware of it or not. It's all emotion based.
It's probably part of the trick too, when you kind of get down to it. You know, is learning how to tie into that and make it work for you.
For sure.
And not mess with your head and your emotions to the point where you can't think straight and stuff like that.
And it's a good like exercise to really think about, like, okay, what is mine? What emotions are mine right now, and what am I picking up from other people that aren't mine? Oh, sure. And it's like sometimes it's hard to dissect and like see what's yours and what's not.
Well, especially as you kind of said before, and you've talked about this, like if you overanalyze stuff, it's easy to kind of start projecting on other people your fears and your thinking, and before you know it, you're completely down the wrong track for the rest of the day.
For sure.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
So did you? So there's songwriting. I always kind of. Oh man, I've talked to so many musicians about this. It is kind of like a journalist where, you know, or you're an author, and the old line is like, you get up every morning and write 10 pages. No matter what you're feeling, right? Like, as you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get up and write 5, and just write so you can write to write. But I think, though, for a musician, especially when you kind of have, like, there's a record due, there's a schedule that you now have to meet, and so forth, so on after that, and you start having to say, I got to put out a record. I got our songwrite. And so you're going away to some place to songwrite. You went up to Utica, right? And then you kind of had a lot of, like, you just couldn't get in the right spot up there, I think. It sounded like for initially. So do you find that there's ways to kind of not psych yourself out too much when you have that pressure that you gotta write? You gotta write. because you're trying to make it come in from in here within your heart and your.
For sure, you always want it to be real. You don't ever want it to not be true to yourself. I don't know. I had a hard time on the second record, mostly just because like emotionally I was completely shut off. So and as songwriting is such an emotional, it's all emotion.
Oh sure.
So it, at least my style, or like how I like to write.
It's a diary.
Yeah, and so I wasn't really feeling anything. I was just completely shut off and really just kind of numb to a lot of stuff and wasn't in touch with my emotions and was overthinking everything and very much in my head, not in my heart. So it was like really, that's what was difficult about it. It wasn't even the pressure of like, all right, you got it right. It was like, all right, I have to feel first to do anything.
Right.
But I don't know. There are days when you can pull it out of you. But I don't know. I definitely have started to be a lot more expressive with like what I need and just vocal and communicative with that kind of stuff. Like just what you need to write in the right environment, or just to create in the best environment that you can. And it's really just kind of speak up. So it's like if I'm uninspired, don't force it, don't push it.
Right.
Like, and I think that's the most important, is just being aware of that and making sure that you're not letting anybody else's, I don't know.
Well, the pressure is there sometimes. Yeah, it can be, especially if I always feel bad for a band that come right out of the box with a real hit record, because then it's like, well, how do you top that? And then there's so much pressure because everybody expects you to have the same level, if not higher now, and everything else. But by that point, the artist has evolved.
Yeah,
they've grown up more. They've changed their life experiences, touring the world, everything else like that, relationships, everything. Yeah. And so it's like it's that's why that kind of the ebb and flow of a career seems to be more of a natural rhythm for not only human beings but for an artist. It's even more so for an artist, I would think.
Yeah, it's definitely. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it's so tricky right now, because right now it's so consumer based and streaming based, and music's very fast paced and just instantaneous, and people want instant gratification on both ends, as artists and as fans. So it's tricky because you don't want people to lose interest, but you also don't want to compromise your integrity or authenticity with it. But I don't know. I also think right now is just a really weird period in music to begin with, and I don't know if it's gonna be a thing that lasts or not, or if it's gonna. I'm hoping it just flips back into like what it used to be. Mm-hmm. But
like album oriented.
Yeah, just album oriented, body of work oriented, or maybe not even that, but just like focusing on good songs, not on Spotify singles or making a certain playlist on Spotify or like radio singles. Just really focusing on just like make the best songs you can make and let those speak for themselves, and just I don't know. I think that's the biggest thing at the end of the day. But
I think it seems like to me that I'm old enough to remember when Billboard charts and all that stuff. When Casey Kasem came up, the whole thing. Dick Clark started it, and then it went into Casey Kasem, and then it just got worse after that, where it was just so focused on the chart. Mm-hmm. And then, but it still is. Oh yeah. Oh no, very much so. But I've always felt it was the movie industry that really destroyed it, because the movie industry. It was with cable news when it started picking up in the 90s. It was all about what was the weekend box office score. And so once it hit that, where it was like it's all based upon that opening weekend, it just got worse. And so everything was based upon just that weekend, that 1 week. And then after that, everybody just moves on. And like, well, you either won or you lost. And so it's really unfair for artists, because you're not trying to make some are, because they get wrapped up into it, right? They're trying to make a record that's going to win, right? But for the rest of them, they just want to, like you're saying, you just want to make, a time capsule, so to speak. It makes it hard to kind of do that, and then also have the competition of like, well, you didn't work in the top 5. So,
it's like a weird balance, because you can care about that, like the numbers in a sense, not necessarily in like we won or we lost, but just looking at it as like, oh, this many people connected, or like this many people were able to connect that it allowed it to be at this level, or just like looking at it more as like just reaching more people and connecting with more people. But it can mess with your head a little bit. Like if something doesn't do as well as you wanted it to, you could be like, oh, this was a flop. Like I definitely find myself doubting things sometimes, being like, oh, well, it didn't do well there, or like it didn't go to radio or whatever, but it's like, I don't know. I think everything resonates when it's meant to, and I don't know. Things.
You know, there was something I posted on my Instagram about 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago. A lot of artists responded to it, and it was a quote because it was something that here it is: focus on valuing who you are, not what you do.
Yeah.
When people look to their accomplishments to validate that they are worthy, their sense of feeling good about themselves rides on those accomplishments. So, if you perform well, you will feel good about yourself. If you perform poorly, you will feel less worthy, right? But you are
pride
more
thing.
Yeah. But you are more than your accomplishments. Just as every infant is born in the world as a worthy human being, you are worthy just for being you. So it's a beautiful moment.
I love that.
But a lot of artists I've seen go down into sinkholes if that single or that work that they put out, and they feel like it's the collapse on them. It's just so hard.
Yeah, it's definitely trippy.
Artists are too hard on themselves. I've always felt that. I understand why.
Yeah.
Because they're perfectionists.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they are these really beautiful creatures, as I call them. They really are, especially singers. I think singers have something different than the rest of the team do in the group. I just think because it's vocal.
You're the voice. You're the communication in a way.
And even though maybe somebody else in the group may be writing the songs or whatever like that, you're still the voice behind it. And there's such a different physicality to that brings to it that I think it changes the impact of how that singer gets affected by things.
Yeah, I know for me, it like just knowing that you have to go up and sing every night is like, not so, I'm kind of navigating it now to be more of like the flipped reaction, but I used to get so anxious and just be like, oh shit, like, because your body is your instrument.
Oh yeah.
And anything can affect it, whether it's your mood or whether it's like what you ate that day or anything. But I think the biggest thing is like your mood and where your headspace is, because you could be in perfect shape and perfect condition, like perfectly warmed up, everything, vocal cords healthy, but if you're like severely anxious before you go on, it shuts everything down. It's somebody's hands at your throat the whole set, so it's like it's tricky. It's definitely weird.
It's and you know, this is the first time I've heard of a singer that's gone through that. It's you literally psych yourself into it.
Yeah.
And
I still do it.
Really?
Yeah, I'm working through it. But
and I think you know, and you have talked about it a little bit. You talk about it in the story and so forth. But I think fans are so. I think this is the difference of what it used to be when I grew up. God, I'm dating myself, but back, you know, in the 70s and the 80s, when I was going to my first concerts and stuff like that, the most you thought you were going to get close to a musician from your favorite band was you're going to sit out in a parking lot and maybe you'll see the bus drive by. Mm-hmm. You know, most of the time, unless you were, you know, trying to run to their hotel and meet them out in front of that, right? But now with everybody knowing everything about you and the access is so much there, but I think that the fans bond with the artists better and they root for them.
Yeah. There's a lot of camaraderie,
more support.
Yeah, totally. I was dealing with a lot when we were over in Europe, and like that was the biggest test of like, all right, trust the people rooting for you, and trust the crowd in front of you, and just lean on them when you need them. And that was the first time I had to like really do that and really trust that, and it was really, really beautiful.
Are you one of those? You have to be. So this is a softball. Do you see in the middle of the night when you wake up and can't sleep, do you go through and read the comments?
I don't.
Really?
No.
So it wasn't a softball.
It's on. I'll like read them occasionally on a random day, like, but for the most part, I really try and just not.
Purpose, because you just don't want to be affected by it?
Yeah. I like not knowing. I like just knowing what I know, and that's what I'm working on and what I'm focused on, and that's what your reality is ultimately. So I don't want anything kind of altering that or just really like switching that, because I've definitely in the past have seen things that I was just like, yo, that literally ruined my entire week. Or
right, what I was just talking about.
Yeah.
Right, you're not worthy anymore.
Yeah, it definitely messes with your head. And there's like things that have probably were said about me like 3 or 4 years ago at this point, or just like one thing somebody said back in the day that like you still carry with you. I think that's everybody. It's just like one negative opinion or thought can like really follow you for the rest of your life. Follow you and just haunt you. But
a couple more for the fans, the music nerds, the Paris, you know, trivia fans. Which off this new record, which song was the one that changed the most from its inception to the final cut? Like how did it change?
Let me think about this.
Because a lot of times it happens like, before you even get into really recording it, because it started one way and somebody added this and it went a different direction.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the track listing. I want to say either Heaven or Winter probably changed the most. Both I had started on Logic, so they started as like super simple Logic demos, and like kind of had a little bit of production in there, but like not enough to be like the final result. But I think Heaven definitely started much different, or it ended up much different than it had started. It was like the beginning, it started much more like on a more atmospheric synth and like a lot just dreamier vibe than just straight piano. And I remember in Utica there's like I want to say 3 grand pianos in the room, in the live room, and I would just go in every morning and play. And I remember one morning I was playing the chords to Heaven, and Blake was like, yo, that's how the song needs to start. I was like, oh, okay. Definitely agreed. But I don't know. I think Heaven was also like one of the earlier demos of the record, and was just one I had so long and was just so used to hearing one way that I just wanted to hear it a different way in a different context.
It's interesting how sometimes that can happen. Like the one you're just like, oh, this is done. I got that one done. And then you're like, get into the studio or whatever, and you're just like, I don't like it anymore.
Yeah,
you probably changed, or you're in a different mindset from when you wrote it. And
yeah. Well, that's what's so awesome about collaborating is you can, one person can be like, oh, just change that one snare hit to like a slightly different timing, or like just change that one chord there before this drop or something, and it's like literally can change the whole story sometimes, or just like open up a little vault in your brain for that song or that section that you're like, oh, cool, thank you, just open that door, now we can dive in and like go somewhere else with it, or just build on it.
About compartmentalizing,
yeah,
right? And so how do you, when you're writing with somebody else, for somebody else, right, how do you compartmentalize with like, oh, I want to keep that for myself?
I don't know,
because again, you're giving of yourself, right? You're giving of
I don't know, I think it's easier writing for pitch, right? Quote unquote, which is like writing for other people. But it's easy. It's kind of easier to do that because it's a little bit more freeing, because you don't have to be as personal or like diving deep with it. You can just be like, oh, I don't know. It's much more lighthearted and like freeing in a way.
Do you think it creatively gives your ability to kind of have a nice outlet?
Yeah, because there's so many ideas in my head constantly where I'm like, that could never be a Paris song. Like if we drop that, people would be like, what are you doing?
Right.
But in another
country, right?
Yeah, or like in another context or through a different artist's like just entity, it would make sense or something like that. So it's, I don't know, you get to kind of stretch your creative tentacles a little bit, and it's fun.
Here's a good one. There's an author, Diane Cameron, and she writes a quote about introverts, because I've been kind of thinking about this myself about a lot. And she goes, introverts crave meaning, so party chit-chat feels like sandpaper to our psyche.
Yeah, it does.
How are you in parties? Because you were talking about before, like, are you kind of like, you just want to get into meaningful conversations with people? You don't want to get into how's the weather and really what do you do? And
yeah, I live off of heart to hearts and just like dive into people immediately. And sometimes it's really hard to do that just depending on like somebody else's energy. But like, I don't know, at parties, I'm always like in the back corner with like 4 other people telling ghost stories or something weird. Like always trying to just find that conversation, or I don't know.
Have you seen a ghost before?
I haven't, but I've had a few things happen that was
really, I
couldn't explain. Yeah.
Well, give me the best one.
I'd say the best one was probably this one. Okay, I don't know what this was. My house is not haunted. Like my mom and dad's house isn't haunted. But there's been one thing that happened. Maybe I think I was in high school, that I have no clue how it happened or like how to even explain it. But I was asleep. I was like going to bed one night. It was during the summer. My brother was out with his friends one night, And in the summer I have my windows open all the time, and I could, in the past we'd had people steal like pool floaties from our pool, and there was one night I was falling asleep, and from my bedroom window, which is one of the windows is to the side of the house and one of them is to the back of the house,
Okay.
and I could hear people like running past the side of the house, like it sounded like a group of teenagers, and I was like, oh, they're here to steal the pool floaties. I'm gonna catch them red-handed. And so I like got down from my bed and like started crawling on the floor because I didn't know if people could see me through the window or not. But I like peeked my head up into the backyard where the pool was, and I could see as I was crawling that the motion sensor light was on. So I was like, okay, so there's definitely people like moving around back there. And I like poked my head up and nobody was in the backyard. And I was like, all right, well, that's a little interesting. That's a little weird. So I was like, maybe they like ran through the yard or something. I didn't know. But then I just like laid back down and was like starting to fall back asleep. And then I heard a bunch of people coming upstairs to like, just like the upstairs hallway. It sounded like a group of teenagers again. So I was like, oh, my brother's probably home with his friends. And I could see, my door was closed. I could see under the door that the light was on in the hallway. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go poke my head out and say hey for a second. And I opened up the door. Hall room was completely dark. Nobody was up there. My brother was out. He still wasn't home. And that was really it. But it was just like,
wow.
2 times I heard people and there's nobody there.
And then it never happened after that again?
Never happened again. That was it.
So I wonder, like a transient energy.
Possibly. Who knows? I have a theory on how that thing could have happened at my house. And this might be very far-fetched and probably just complete bullshit. And I don't know if this will make any sense. But I think I truly believe when we dream, our consciousness is like just thrown into whatever plane, or like we exist on the third dimension, but I feel like your consciousness gets thrown into, or like the veil is stripped away from that third dimension. You can just go into anything. So like time isn't linear, it's all happening at once. So like past, present, future is all happening around you, and that's why it makes sense. That's why everything in your dreams, when you're in the dream, makes sense, and then when you step out, you're like, none of that made any sense. So I feel like since I was falling asleep, maybe I was like maybe some of my subconscious, or like maybe some kind of subconscious thing, or like part of my consciousness was still like tapped in somewhere. So it was like weird things were getting like crossed over into like my perception or senses or something. But
you hear about that a lot, where people's like, I was just falling asleep.
Yeah.
And then I saw somebody standing in my bed, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah.
I feel like it's not just like you being sleepy or like waking up from a dream. Like there's something to that where like there was a part of that was in your actual reality. Like some little glitch of your perception was like tapped into something else somewhere. So, or something else was like leaking through your perception to some degree.
See, this stuff's awesome.
I love this conversation.
Right? Because it keeps you up at night and you start going, and we're never going to really get the answer anyway, right?
Maybe not.
You know?
Maybe
not. I thank you so much.
Thank you.
For
this
doing
was a really fun chat.
Yeah, thank you so much, and good luck with everything. And I'm just really happy for you. It's all the positive energy now.
Yes, yeah.
Sending you
I'm
positive
hoping really good stuff comes out of it, instead of hoping people understand this energy and are like, why aren't you depressed anymore? write another white noise. Like,
why do you have a lot of neon in your Instagram account now, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think we're gonna do that whole neon kick, but I definitely think there will be some more shades of Paris that people will see. So. And I'm hoping it's always gonna be like real, but I'm hoping it resonates just as much. So we'll see.
Good luck with everything. Thank you again.
Thank you. It was awesome.